Hey, boys and girls. Today we're going to be reading Chapter 2 of Jake Drake Know-It-All. Chapter 2, Big News. When something big is going to happen at school, the kids are always the last to know. First, the principal and the teachers and the other grown-ups get everything figured out. Then they tell me and my friends about it, which doesn't seem very fair, but that's how it happens. So one Tuesday morning before Christmas vacation, there was an assembly for the kids in third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade. I sat up front with all the other third graders. The principal looked huge. Miss Carp is always tall. But standing up on the stage that morning in a green dress, she looked like a giant piece of celery. She looked like a giant piece of celery. What type of figurative language is that? It's comparing two things and using like or as. That's right, it's a simile. There was someone else on the stage. It was this man I'd never seen before. He was wearing a yellow sport coat and a purple tie with green polka dots. It was the first time I'd ever seen a yellow sport coat or a purple tie with green polka dots. I thought maybe he worked for a circus. He sat on a folding chair and he had a wide roll of paper lying across his lap. It was noisy in the auditorium. Then Miss Carp held up two fingers and leaned toward the microphone. Miss Carp should not be allowed to have a microphone. She doesn't need one. Every kid in the school knows how loud she can yell. When Miss Carp yells, it feels like the tiles are going to peel up off the floor and start flying around. No one wanted to hear Miss Carp yell, and especially not into a microphone, so it got quiet in about 1 second. Miss Carp said, "Good morning, students," and then she paused. So all of us said, "Good morning, Miss Carp." Then Miss Carp said, "I have some good news this morning. The people at Wonky Supercomputer Store have been talking to our Board of Education. And in just 1 month, our school is going to have 20 brand new computers for our media center. 20 new computers. Isn't that wonderful?" Miss Carp paused, so all the kids and the teachers in the audience clapped. Some of the fifth graders started cheering and shouting stuff like, "Yay!" and "All right!" and "Awesome!" So Miss Carp had to hold up two fingers again. It got quiet right away. Then she said, "But there's a reason that I've asked just the third, fourth, and fifth grade classes to come here this morning. And that's because during the next to last week of January, our school is going to have a science fair." Miss Carp paused again, but no one clapped this time. Then she said, "This is the first time we've had a science fair at DePreez Elementary School. So this is something brand new for all of us. And to tell you more about our very first science fair ever, I'd like to introduce Mr. Lenny Cordo. He's the manager of Wonky's Supercomputer Store. Mr. Cordo?" The man in the yellow sport coat and the purple tie with the green polka dots stood up. He forgot he had that roll of paper on his lap. It dropped onto the floor and rolled off the front of the stage. A lot of the kids started laughing. Then Miss Carp moved back toward the microphone and the laughing stopped. Miss Snavin got up from her chair in the front row. She picked up the wide roll of paper and handed it back to the man. Mr. Lenny Cordo was a lot shorter than Miss Carp, so he had to pull the microphone down. Then he said, "Thank you, Miss Carp. I am so glad to be here." That's what Mr. Cordo said, but he didn't look that way. There was sweat all over his forehead, and the roll of paper in his hands was shaking. I guess we looked scary, so he talked fast to get it over with. "At Wonky's Computer Store, we love kids. At Wonky's Computer Store, we think it's never too early to get kids excited about science and computers in the future. And that's why Wonky's Computer Store is proud to sponsor the first annual DePreez Elementary School Science Fair." And that's when Mr. Cordo held up the wide piece of paper and let it unroll. It was a banner. It said Wonky's first annual elementary school science fair. The biggest word on the banner was Wonky's, and the whole banner was upside down. There was a little laughing, but it stopped because Mr. Cordo kept talking. He wasn't scared anymore. Now he sounded like a guy selling cars on TV. "In the real world, the world where all of you will live and learn and work in the future, people get rewards for doing good work. And that is why Wonky Supercomputer Store is offering a grand prize for the best science fair project in grade 3, grade 4, and grade 5. When you say those two words, grand prize, kids pay attention. It got so quiet, I could almost hear the sweat sliding down Mr. Cordo's forehead. He saw we were listening now, so he took his time. That's right, there will be 3 grand prizes for the first annual Wonky Science Fair. And do you want to know what each grand prize will be? With one giant voice, every kid in the auditorium shouted, "Yes!" So Mr. Cordo leaned closer to the microphone and shouted back, "Then I'm going to tell you. The grand prize for the best science fair project in grade 3, grade 4, and grade 5 will be a brand new Hypercross functional Bluntium 12 computer system." I couldn't believe it. For the past 3 months, the Bluntium 12 computer had been advertised on every TV channel and in every magazine and newspaper. I had seen it on billboards and even on the side of a bus. The Bluntium 12 was the computer I had been begging my mom and dad to get. It was the fastest computer with the coolest games and the best connections. It was the computer of my dreams. All around me, kids were clapping and saying stuff like "great" and "cool" and "yeah." And then I noticed Kevin and then Marcia. They were sitting in my row of seats. Kevin and Marcia were not clapping. They were not talking. Kevin and Marcia were sitting very still. They were thinking. They were already planning how to win that Bluntium 12 computer. My computer. And when Miss Carp quieted everyone down, I kept looking around, and I could see that other kids were doing the same thing. Kids were starting to think and plan. Miss Carp said some other stuff, but I didn't listen. I was thinking too, because I saw that the only thing standing between me and my very own super fast, super cool computer was about 100 other third grade brains. But I had a feeling that the only other brains I really had to worry about belonged to those two know-it-alls, Kevin Young and Marcia McCall. So today for chapter 2, you're going to go to your Jake Drake slide. So go to Google Classroom, and this is your Jake Drake work. Looks like this. It's going to be the same for the whole Jake Drake book. You're just going to fill out a different slide each time. So yesterday you filled out slide 4, and today you're going to fill out slide 6. So your assignment is to look at Mr. Lenny Cordo's character and how Mr. Lenny's character changed from the beginning of the assembly to the end of the assembly. You need to make sure you write in complete sentences. So this is what you're going to be typing on. How was he at the beginning of the assembly? How was he during the assembly? You can use your book to help you. So when it talks about how he looked at the beginning, I'm going to go to those pages, and it says, the man in the yellow sport coat and the purple tie with green polka dots stood up. He forgot he had that roll of paper on his lap. It dropped onto the floor. He was shorter. He had to pull the microphone down. He said, "Thank you. I'm so glad to be here." But he didn't look that way. There was sweat all over his forehead, and the roll of paper in his hands was shaking. So use that text evidence to help you figure out how you would describe him. You can use your character traits, which is in your toolbox that was assigned to you yesterday. It's on slide 3. So positive character traits and negative character traits. So think, if he was shaking and he was sweating for having to talk in front of people, what character trait would you give him? So then I would go to my slide and I would say, Mr. Lenny Cordo was, and maybe I think he was excited. Mr. Lenny Cordo was excited because he was sweating and shaking. Because the text said he was sweating and shaking. So that's how you would put it in a complete sentence. Then I would look how he was during the assembly. If you have any questions, please email me. And I can't wait to read chapter 3 tomorrow. Y'all have a great day.